From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is U.S. Farm Report.
Welcome to U.S. Farm Report this Mother's Day weekend. I'm Tyne Morgan, and here's what's in store over the next 60 minutes. Planting is off to its slowest start in nearly a decade.
I'm not saying this is going to be a bad crop, but a lot of things have got to go right, and we've kind of taken a record yield off the table.
We'll tell you what impact it could have on final yields. As a ranch family in North Dakota gets real about what it's like to battle historic blizzards at the height of calving season.
It's like gratefulness and fear all sort of balled into one because we haven't seen snow like this for years.
Blessings in the form of moisture as the Veters weathered the storm. And in John's world,
cold enough for you?
Well, now for the news. Planting progress right now is moving at its slowest pace in 9 years. USDA is saying in the latest crop progress report that only 14% of the corn crop is in the ground. That's 19 percentage points off the 5-year average. But take a look at this map created by Farm Journal. It shows where things are running behind right now. Those areas highlighted in red. Illinois running the furthest behind with just 7% of the crop in the ground. That's 36 percentage points behind average. Iowa only 9% planted, and that's a 33 percentage point decline from the 5-year average. Now Minnesota with nothing in the ground for corn, that is 28 points behind. The issue, weeks of wet and cold weather.
That has painted this wet picture across most of the nation's major crop production areas, and that is the main reason for the delays.
And checking on the soybeans, it's much of the same story. USDA reporting 8% of the crop has been planted so far. The 5-year average is actually 13%. Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana are all considerably behind, but relief could be on the way for the Midwest next week. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik will have a check of that weather coming up. Well, India now says it's not moving to curb wheat exports. That announcement coming after Bloomberg report earlier this week had said it was considering restrictions after a heat wave had considerably damaged the wheat crop there. India is the world's second biggest producer of wheat. The news sending wheat up double digits again, where at home, out of concern, it would exacerbate already tight supplies due to the war in Ukraine. Now, India Food and Farm Ministry officials saying the country can still easily export at least 8 million tons of wheat this year. It said the government would only consider curbing exports if there's a sudden and unexpected surge in overseas shipments. But the country's food secretary told Reuters, quote, there is no move to curb wheat exports as the country has sufficient stocks of wheat, end quote. India has cut its wheat output forecast to 105 million tons. That's down from a February estimate of just over 111 million tons. Well, Tariff Talk is back on the table again. U.S. tariff relief for China is apparently now under consideration. U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai talking about it during an interview at the Milken Institute Global Conference in Los Angeles. Last week, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen also proposed the phasing out of Trump-era tariffs on merchandise imports from China to provide price relief to Americans.
You know, tariffs are the traditional trade tool. They're a revenue raiser. They're a traditional way of regulating trade, right? So sure, we can look at those tariffs, right? But I'm giving you the lens, the strategic lens through which we need to be looking at.
I appreciate the lens. You're not answering the question. Are they on the table or not?
Are they on the table or not? All tools are on the table.
Okay.
The question is, what do you do with them?
Well, ag producers across the country are feeling a little better about the state of the overall farm economy, but inflation has them worried. So does sourcing inputs. That's according to the Purdue CME Group Ag Economy Barometer. The latest survey showing a slight increase in April, up 8 points to a reading of 121. That's up slightly month over month, but well below last year's reading at this time of 178. Surveyors say the April increase can be attributed to an improvement in farmers' outlooks on current situation, as well as what they expect in the future.
So producers are starting to feel somewhat better about their farm's financial situation in 2022 compared to 2021. The Farm Capital Investment Index, however, did not improve. It stayed at 36. That's the lowest reading we've ever had on the Farm Capital Investment Index. And over 40% of the producers in this month's survey continue to say that purchase plans are being impacted by low farm machinery inventory levels. This month, 11% of the producers in the survey said that they had received notice from an input supplier that the supplier would be unable to deliver inputs they had already purchased for use in the 2022 crop season.
Mintert says farmers were clear the top concern for 2023 are higher input costs, followed by the availability of inputs. When asked about 2023, more than a third of farmers in the survey say they do expect input prices to rise 10% or more on top of 2022's already elevated prices. And the Federal Reserve raised its key interest rate by 0.5 percentage point this week, part of an ongoing effort to tamp down the worst inflation in 40 years. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell this week downplaying the likelihood of bigger interest rate hikes following the U.S. Central Bank's biggest increase in 2 decades. That means higher interest costs for mortgages, home equity lines of credit, credit cards, as well as other loans for things like farmland. Economists say the rate increase could cause long-distance issues. All right, that's it for the news. Well, a cold and rainy week meant another week of little planting progress, but the forecasts, they do show brighter days are ahead. We'll have a check of your planting forecasts next.